Do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him. For God's temple is holy, and you are that temple. This is episode 12 of Summer in Process, and together we gather.
Shut up and sit down.
Enjoy.
All right, we're back. Jesus has gathered us here and to himself, and we're in process. Summer in process. So summer. Last episode, you went from really making this shift in your life to being supportive, becoming like what most people would say is a better person, supporting your friends, giving this gospel fluency to your boyfriend, working through things, and he was calling you out and saying you're not living any of this either.
Yep.
But you were really being supportive, and then you went from that to, getting pregnant, getting sick, and awakening. But let's back up a bit. And your boyfriend was basically calling you back out.
Yeah.
And saying, but you're not living this either. And so, how did that impact you? Was that helpful?
It was helpful. It was part of the reason that I was like, well, I can't, I need to start behaviorally doing these things because I can't make him do them and not do them myself. That's just not okay. So it was bringing me to a place of okay, some things needs to be changed about where I'm at or whatever. So.
And when you say you can't make him if you're not doing it.
Yeah.
What would making him look like? 'Cause a couple episodes ago, you revealed that you started realizing on trail that you had a power that you could wield, or maybe that was at college, that you had power. Oh, and I remember that story, and you didn't hit that, and I thought that was interesting. But how I remember you coming to me and saying that when you just hand out your number to guys, they automatically think that you're interested. And so you have to stop just handing out your number to guys or something to that effect. And I knew in that moment that even though I had felt like I had prepared you for college and guys, that maybe you hadn't quite taken all of it to heart.
No.
Some of it might have went past you.
Yeah.
And so then we had a great talk about that, and you got more powerful in your personality. What you keep saying, your personality or yourself. Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so you were pressing on your boyfriend to live it out. In what way? How are you trying to make him do it?
Yeah, well, a lot of times it was I would explain it as if we want to continue this relationship, we need to work towards this because I'm not going to continue a relationship where we're not working towards health and health in my way.
Yeah.
And his way too, I guess, but specifically health in my way. So if I wanted to continue the relationship, which we had fully planned on doing, then we needed to make it work.
This is post health. You realizing pregnancy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Once I realized I was pregnant, I realized that things were going to change pretty radically with our relationship.
So how do you think he felt about that? Do you think that he felt maybe that was, because to me, from my perspective, it sounds a bit leveragey.
It was a bit leveragey, but I think he was also, his intention with the relationship, which actually wasn't my intention originally with the relationship, but was he wanted a long-term relationship. And so he told me that when we basically started dating, within a week of us knowing each other, he told me that.
Part of, I'm guessing, the security and attraction
that I had towards him.
Yeah, because typically men look for, generally, stereotypically, men are looking for uh, a different thing than women are. But one of the things that women a lot of times look at
Is security.
is security.
Yeah.
And I'm not a woman. I know that from hearing a
Yeah.
lot of feedback from a lot of women.
Yeah. And so with his intention in the relationship, I was like, okay, well, we're at this point. We've been dating for almost a year now. We, like, if we're looking towards having a long-term relationship, getting married, all of those kinds of things, then, like, I'm not going to do this if we're not both walking in faith. And so, like, and he was also like, well, I want to have a long-term relationship too. And this seems like a healthy thing to do. And so it was a little leveragey because it was like more my way than his way. And he had never really done any, like, grown up in that or had a lot of experience with that. So he was going along with it because it was healthy and he recognized that. And so he was going along with it. Plus, I wasn't doing this like gung-ho, this is exactly what we're doing, like we're just gonna like change everything about our relationship. I was kind of slowly moving into it, and so it wasn't like this like radical thing. And I think if it would have been like a radical thing, it would have really not worked out. Like
Imploded quicker.
it would have, it would have just like been like, no, we're done. We can't do this anymore. So because it was more of like, oh, it's fine. Like we'll keep doing some of the things we're doing. Like we'll keep walking in some unhealth, and we'll eventually make it to like a healthier place. Then it was okay. It was like, okay, we're moving to health. Yeah. So that was kind of.
And around the same time, I remember a little bit. I remember some of the conversations we had about this time, but I remember me thinking about you and bringing this there, that through your college time, you struggled a bit because you wanted to walk out your faith with Christians who were walking it out and saw it from a free point of growing rather than a behavioral space, right? And so you were having trouble. There were maybe some people who proclaim, that they were Christians there, but they were maybe walking it not out of freedom. Maybe they were. Who knows? Shout out if you're watching this and you're one of those people. But you felt like, at least, your perception was that they were doing it out of more of an ought and a behavioral space and a fear, rather than we don't have to walk that way. We can like let God change us as we go, more of a freedom space.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, specifically, there was one person, one of my roommates, that I had become really close with second semester of school, where she realized, I think at first she thought I was just kind of like a freshman who was just going to party a lot and break the rules a lot. And then when she realized like I wasn't like that, she was okay with like letting me in a little bit more to like a deeper relationship, I guess. And she claimed Christianity, and she walked that out behaviorally a lot. But I also do think she had a lot of freedom too. And we actually, second semester, towards the end of the semester, opened up that conversation a lot. So there was that freedom, there was that health that I was like starting to like walk in with people around me. And it wasn't just behavioralism.
Yeah. And I remember thinking that, well, maybe, like Jesus, because we do the like Jesus thing a lot, because filled with his spirit, we should be like him. And so just like Jesus, he didn't start a temple. He didn't start a church in the typical institutionalized location sense where everybody started going. And that should blow a lot of people's minds. I hope a lot of people hear that. He didn't start a church and gathered everybody to that location. He started a people who were the church. And we've hit on that a lot. But that's such a different idea. And so like Jesus actually went into multiple synagogues, churches, and cast out demons and rebuked people and created a church of people who could be the church anywhere, anytime, all the time. And that's a radically different idea. And so just real quick. And so as he was doing that, he started seeing people who were picking up and receiving what he was saying. And those are who he chose to be his disciples. That's how he did it. And so then he continued to invite them in and bring them along with him. And because he knew the Father was drawing them, he could see it, and the Holy Spirit was telling him that. And so encouraged you, hey, the people you're around, as you're getting this, just reach out to those people
Mhm.
and see who receives it. And so, from my perspective, and probably a bit of your perspective, you started picking up on this, sharing it.
Mhm.
This is going to be a gospel powered, disciple making movement happening right there in Ely.
Mhm.
And so you thought you were going up there to go to college. And in reality, God had a movement
Yeah.
to do. And that is true, just not the way either of us
Right.
really thought,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because then you got pregnant and really he knew this all along, but that shifted everything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and um going back to like um that the idea of like the church, like a lot of what drove me to that friendship with that one specific person was because she did have a lot of like freedom in that. Like she wasn't doing the like
Yeah.
I have to go to a building
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
at college, which
Yeah.
I was really annoyed by people who like felt like they needed to do that at
Yeah.
school, which is like fun, like awesome if you're creating community. Like there's nothing wrong with it. It just
Yeah.
for me it was like, why are you like having to do that?
Yeah, well, here, let me just define it real quick
Yeah.
because I think a lot of people have trouble with me specifically and like the things that like I they feel like I'm teaching or whatever, but my model's Jesus. And so what I think happens, and this is a good way, I had a conversation with a guy the other day, and we, in the conversation, defined it really well. But basically, if you're defined by your attendance on a Sunday morning, you got to question, why are you a believer? Why are you a Christian? Are you a Christian because of your attendance on Sunday morning? If you are, which a lot of people I think are, fine, you're in a growth place. You just haven't moved from understanding that you're a Christian because of what Jesus has done and what he's doing, not because of what you do and what you're doing. And so that's a huge difference. And it doesn't have to just be church attendance. It could be prayer, reading the scriptures, and like you're always defined on what you're doing. But Christianity isn't being defined on what we do. It's being defined on what he did and what he does and what he's doing. And so we shift over. And so we stop putting all the pressure on us, which we can't handle, and we're eventually going to implode one way or another, to the pressures on him. And so our faith transfers from ourselves to him.
Yeah, and that's why I liked I was drawn more towards people who weren't putting that pressure on themselves because
Yeah.
it showed
Yeah.
in their actions, in their conversations, and all that kind of stuff.
Just real quick,
Yeah.
just on the flip side, and I'm aware of this, and people who I have this conversation with, depending on where they're at and their freedom in Christ, are typically are aware of this as well. But there is, I understand, like a false freedom of, oh, I don't have to gather with people. That is never ever what we're
Well, and
saying. That's
that's
why we
more-
name this whole thing "We Gather."
And that's
It's
more
because
what
we
I
gather
was
together.
right, and that's more what I was walking in versus she was. I think she was just walking in a little bit more like,
Sure.
I'm at college. I'm a college student. I might not be able to like attend a
Sunday
Sunday morning thing.
But she
right
might
now.
be gathering with other believers
the
and having
truth is-
conversations.
right, and the truth is, it was Ely,
Yeah.
Minnesota. There's like not a lot of churches anyway. Maybe there wasn't a lot of community she felt connected
Yeah.
with anyway. So all of that, but I was in more of a place of like, you don't have to, like, it's
Yeah.
great, like
Yeah.
you'll be fine without community kind of
Yeah.
a thing. Whereas
Yeah.
which is obviously the
Sin.
other end of the spectrum, which is
Yeah.
like super unhealthy.
Yeah,
So-
because you're not following God's design.
Right.
So when you're freed by what Jesus has done, you're going to then be empowered to follow his design.
Right.
If you're being freed by your own actions and freedom apart from God, you're going to do things that are not in accordance with his design. And so that's why we should be like Jesus. If we're freed by Jesus, we should be like Jesus. And so if we're very religious and institutional, that's not Jesus. He wasn't religious or institutional. He created an institution, one that's eternal and very powerful and free. And I mean, he is the institution that we can find our security in, and our identity in, and our our hope in, and our protection in, and our he is our defense. He is the shelter. But anyway, so you were working with these friends and really hoping the best, and you were starting to create a bit of a dynamic relationship, and there was a movement that was happening, but then you got pregnant and you wanted to continue to work through it, but then you started getting sick.
Yeah, so like as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I wasn't sick yet. And so I knew things were going to have to change, but I didn't necessarily like I thought maybe I was going to have to like chill out on some of my classes. I was in very active classes that weren't like safe
Like
for
what?
being pregnant. I was in a sea kayaking class.
Right.
And sea kayaking in Ely, Minnesota is like a very cold activity.
Yeah.
We were literally, it was like probably about this time of year, so like September, and we were already in dry suits, which is like the warmest you can get for like water activity. So like it was really cold, which drastic cold is just like not safe for pregnancy.
Right.
Also, it was like super highly active, and I wasn't actually being super highly active at the time, and so that drastic change in activity also is super can affect the pregnancy.
Yeah, if you're already highly active,
Yeah.
you can maintain the activity
Yeah.
that you were when you got pregnant.
But I wasn't, and
Right.
so well, I kind of was, but not
to
enough
that
where I
degree.
felt
Not sea
comfortable.
kayaking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just
Yeah.
got back from summer camp where I was like pretty.
Right.
Yeah, but anyway, I'd taken a little bit of a chunk of time off, and yeah, it wasn't regular. Anyway,
Yeah.
blah blah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was some like classes that I just didn't feel comfortable taking anymore. There's another like search and rescue kind of class that I was supposed to take, and it also had a lot of like cold water kind of stuff, cold water rescue.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to do like cold water rescue, and then we were going to go in sauna to warm up, which that's like the number one thing
Right.
everyone knows. You just like don't go in a sauna or a hot tub when you're
Right,
pregnant. Like
right.
you could ask most people and they would know
Right.
that.
Right.
And so I thought maybe what was going to happen, I was just going to like have to chill out on classes a little bit, like step back, like start stop being so invested, I guess, in schooling. But that obviously very quickly I realized I couldn't do that when I all of a sudden started not being able to keep food down, not being able to keep water down within like, I mean, I found out I was pregnant on Monday and got so sick I couldn't keep food and water down by Thursday. And so it was like a pretty like drastic, like
And then from that point to the time that you came home was what?
you guys came and got me on a Friday.
That next Friday.
That Friday. Yeah. So I found out on a Monday. I talked to you guys on a Wednesday. I was sick on that Wednesday, but not like so sick I wasn't able to like do stuff about it. And then that Thursday was the day that it just like really hit me super hard. And then you guys came and got me on a Friday, and I was at the hospital on Saturday.
Yeah, I remember us trying to work through whether you should go to classes or not, and we were very for you continuing to go if you could,
And I was
supporting you from afar.
Yeah, and I was planning on doing that. And so I thought that was going to be, obviously God realized that's not what I needed at the time. But I thought I was going to be able to maintain possibly even that, not even that just that semester, but that entire rest of the year. I thought I was maybe going to be able to maintain classes, because I did plan on doing 2.5 years anyway. So I was thinking maybe I could actually continue school throughout my entire pregnancy and then move home after that. But that was a thought for about a day, because
Yeah.
obviously things
Yeah, and I
change.
remember talking to your mom and you two working through that, and then us basically saying, hey, you're free to continue to be there. You're free to come home. God's in control either way. And will there be consequences? Will there be monies lost? Blah, blah, blah. Sure. But like, we serve the God of the universe. And so be free to stay there. If you feel led to, feel free to come back. If you feel led to, how can we support you in the best way?
Yeah.
And you were working through that too. And I think I bring that up because I think that's critical for parents to understand, that God is in control.
Yeah.
And so like there's a lot of parents who their kids do things that clearly is outside of God's design. And then like, because they're so behavioral, they're so afraid, they try to save the situation, and then they try to demand that their kid keeps going to school, or they demand that they come home and sever all ties, or they do these things as if they're in control, rather than like trusting that God's in control, trusting that he's leading you, even though you're not in the greatest space. Obviously we realize that right away. Like, okay, Summer's maybe not where we thought she was. And that's but that's part of her process. That's like, but now we see that God's revealed it. And so we can trust his process with working in you, right?
Yeah, and let's be real, like for those people listening, like if you found out your child had gotten someone pregnant or was pregnant, like that's like in a lot of people's books, like the behavioral worst, like a lot of times. Like I didn't know personally, but like I knew friends who got pregnant and not necessarily their parents weren't necessarily walking with Jesus, but it's just like, even in the worldly perspective, like you
ruined your future.
Yeah, you're going to college and you got pregnant during college. Like, couldn't you have waited till after college at least? Or like all of these things.
Yeah. You blew your hope.
Right.
Your hope is
the path you were set on. Now you're screwed because you can't do that anymore. Anyway, so I was just mentioning that because like that obviously is a pretty radical like behavioralistic thing that comes out. That people are like, oh, okay. Yeah. They just react to it.
Yeah. So then do you want to hit anything else in that period of chunk of time? Because like I think it'd be all right to move past that, and we can come back to the relational aspects later because I still want to work through some of that stuff. But
there were other like relational things going on, like a lot of my friends, I was kind of switching friend groups a little bit. I had actually broken up with my boyfriend like twice already in that small short period of time. And so there was that going on too. So there was a little bit still of like this like not fully moving in health, still this like little bit of like on my own kind of a thing. I was still kind of having a hard time with not eating crappy food as well. So there was more still that I was not fully like working through, but
there was a lot of things yet.
Yeah.
Because really you still hadn't had like a full awakening.
Totally.
God had been like speaking to you and you'd been listening, but you were trying to do it on your terms. And so then that's what I'm wondering is, should we jump to then you got here and you started working through.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
So like you decide to come home.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like decide to come home, but I came home because I was sick.
Oh, right, because we were gonna actually potentially bring you back up.
Yeah,
we weren't sure yet.
Yeah, so we weren't sure.
That's right.
I knew I could swing a little bit of time, like figuring everything out, school wise, and so, and part of the reason I got like. Yeah, there's a lot of school stuff that went on too because I wasn't sure like if I was going to be sick or not. But I came home and I was planning on possibly going back up to school in like 2 weeks, depending on like if I was getting better. So I came home that Friday, got fluids and some like just some other help, like tips on like how to like help with a lot of the symptoms and stuff like that.
Because we weren't sure if it was hyperemesis gravidarum, if that's the right way to pronounce it,
or just if it was just morning sickness. Because like it can, when you get morning sickness, it can be like pretty severe and then kind of like not be as severe. I think one of my friends, it was pretty severe for her, but it wasn't like so severe she couldn't like keep participating in normal life and like eating and drinking and all that kind of stuff. So then I came home and I pretty quickly realized like within like a week, I think it was a week after I had come back home, I realized like I wasn't necessarily going to get better. I decided not to take medication in order to like subdue all my symptoms, which is a whole nother thing, which I think we've kind of hit on before anyway. But so basically I was just going to have to like kind of lay low. And I couldn't have continued school that way. So I was going to try and go up there, get my stuff, and I was actually going to try and finish one more class because I had one more class I was almost finished with. And then I ended up just being so sick that I went up there and got all my stuff, and then I couldn't even stay to finish the class because I was just...
We went up and got your stuff.
Yes, I didn't...
You did come with.
Yeah. You weren't there, but me and my mom went up.
Right.
Yeah.
I went up the first time.
Yeah,
I went
just to
up at
pick
one
me up.
point.
Just to
Right.
pick me up the
Yeah.
first time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then me and my mom went up there and
Mhm.
to get all my stuff. Because at that point, I knew I wasn't going to, like, be living up there anymore.
Yep.
At least.
Yep.
Yeah. I thought maybe I was still going to be able to go up there for, like, weekends for classes or something. But even that was not realistic
Yeah,
at this point.
so you really went from so just to sum up, you went from I'm improving as a person, I'm becoming independent, I'm in my sweet spot, I'm crushing it, to I'm going to since I'm crushing it, now I'm going to start working on my health and my being more responsible, more independent in a healthy way. You started doing this with your boyfriend, with your friend group. You started changing character as well. So you weren't just crushing it, occupationally, professionally. In your prime, you also were becoming a healthier person, character wise, to other people relationally. And then you got pregnant, weren't sure what to do. There's turmoil with you and your boyfriend back and forth a bit. What are you going to do? I'm sure with him as well. And your friends, I'm sure threw them for a bit of a loop as well.
It did, yeah.
And so, because they're all being impacted by all of this as well. Right. And so.
Well, and a lot of times they were friends with both me and my boyfriend too. And so
Right.
there's not only the whole thing of like, where are you going? But like, this is going to be interesting for you two as well.
Right.
So, there's that.
Right. You got so sick that you had to show up at home, hoping that you could continue on, and come back, but then you didn't. So you went from literally prime, developmentally, to laying in bed, pregnant, no friends, sitting at home, staring at the ceiling.
Yeah.
I mean, from within
like 2 weeks.
Within weeks. And then spent another 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Week 6 to 14. So you can do the math.
8 weeks. So then you spent another 8 weeks not eating, not drinking, losing how much? 30 pounds?
Almost 45 pounds.
45 pounds. Staring at your ceiling. And so let's pick up with that in the next episode.
Okay.
Right there. Because so now you're on mission. Now you've got a human in you. You've got to work through disenrolling from school. You're in this place where you can hardly move or you'll throw up.
And I mean, realistically, I wasn't totally sure if the pregnancy was going to keep either.
Right.
And so there was that aspect of like,
right.
Am I going to have a miscarriage or am I going to continue with the pregnancy?
Right.
So there's also that aspect of it too.
So when we come back, I want to understand a little bit of, did you process all of that where you were to, because what has recently come about is that you haven't, that you hadn't, right? Like you didn't realize that like you went from that place to basically survival mode. And you couldn't really deal with all of what transpired. And so you got to this place where just a little bit ago, you actually got through the pregnancy. You had Luna. She's healthy. She's 3 months. And now God introduces a few moments of flashback. And you realize, I haven't really worked through any of this.
Yeah, pretty much from like the point I got pregnant, like before that, I hadn't worked through a lot of that. And like actually a lot of the stuff during my pregnancy too, I really hadn't worked through. I hadn't been working through. I'd just been kind of pushing to the side, like all that other life stuff that was still happening.
Yeah. But
I was just focusing on the pregnancy and on.
Yeah. So when we get back together, when Jesus gathers us again, let's work through some of that stuff.
Yeah. Feeling provoked, angered, encouraged, inspired by what you heard? Don't keep it to yourself. Comment below. Put your supportive beliefs into action by clicking all the clicky stuff. Lastly, gather with those around you and remind one another what Jesus has done, is doing, and will do.
She's hungry. All right. All right. Do a little clappy clap.